Hi, I'm Buddy Lindsay and welcome back to the channel. I got this diesel powered lawnmower I've got to fix. I've got to get a new water pump in there, but first I got to get a bunch of this other stuff off. And let's see if we can figure out how to actually do this, because I've not had to change a water pump on this before. So let's dig in. Right, so a little bit on where we are. Right here we have the radiator, which I think we're going to have to get off since the water pump is right down in that area. In order to pull that off, they've integrated the hydraulic system into the radiator. And so right there is one of the hydraulic lines. And then one of the other hydraulic lines is right underneath there. The best way to actually get to it is to take off this tire, so we got to jack it up, put it on a jack stand. If you look behind the tire and the frame and everything, right at that point, right there, is the other hydraulic line. You have to take this hydraulic line and the other hydraulic line that I took off a little bit ago, and in order to be able to take off the entire radiator. It is not a fun process. So my battery died whenever I was just pulling off the water pump here. So let's go ahead and take a look at the water pump, the old one and the new one, and let's see what's up. So the first thing we have to do is we have to pull off this top cap that is for the pulleys so that I can actually be able to measure the size. What I mean by that is this is actually a water pump off of a regular tractor and not off of a Toro tractor. If you look at the cap here, it's actually been modified here. My father-in-law took a lathe, cut it down the center, and then welded a kind of an expansion inside of it so that it could actually be modified to use a tractor water pump instead of a Toro water pump, since the Toro water pump was more expensive. Now that we have the cap off, we can compare the size to them, and if we look closely, they are not the same size. In fact, there's probably a ½ inch off. Actually, one of the interesting things is it's because there's not a plate on the bottom of the old one and there is a plate on the bottom of the new one, there might be too much of a distance thing that I might need to do some modification. So let's go ahead and take a measurement of that. But first we have to clean up the bottom of the bottom plate of the old water pump. All right, with the water pump plate clean, let's get the plate on here. Again, plates on this one already. Let's go ahead and compare depths. Very unscientifically, I think it's almost 3/4 of an inch off. What I need is something a little bit better. I don't have an idea. So that's not a good way to compare. Okay, good. This does fit over that, and that fits over that. Will this screw in here? Okay, standardized screw holes. Okay, we're good on that. So I need to be able to compare where this sits in actuality. So this is a better comparison here. So this is about why can't we have it's like I need a left-handed ruler. Like, what the crap? So let's say to the bottom of the pulley on this one, and it actually fully can't even seat because of this thing. So this just isn't going to work, period. It's about 2 inches. The bottom of that one is measuring the same spot, 2 inches. I would be willing to bet this is probably 1.5 inches off, if I had to guess, or ½ an inch. Yeah, I bet this is a ½ inch off on this one. So this has got to be shrunk ½ inch. So it's been about 1.5 weeks since we worked on the mower and the water pump issue, and we finally got a new water pump in and modified, and it should be ready to go. Let's take a look at that water pump. So let's take a look at our water pump. This is the water pump that's off the tractor. Took this off because this is our custom thing where it was split on the lathe and welded in, something my father-in-law did. We also added this nub here to be able to connect the hose to. The other hose should just connect over here. This should be the right height. My father-in-law modified it and double checked everything would work. It has the backing already on it, so we don't have to worry about that. So then the only final piece is to bolt this up, put the gasket on, and put some gasket sealant on there, and we should be ready to go at that point. I went ahead and cleaned up the bolts as best I could on the threads. Couldn't do really a great job, but I think it'll be better than nothing, so hopefully it goes into the mower pretty easily. So with that, let's see about getting this thing attached. So this belt goes on to the engine, onto the water pump, and then over here to the alternator. It's all super tight fit. So now that we have the water pump on, we are ready to actually get going and get the radiator on. It's not as simple as just bolting it on and hooking a couple hoses to it. It's a process. It shouldn't take too long. I think the biggest and longest portion is on the outside of the radiator goes a big circular thing that is the kind of the shroud for the fan, and that's probably going to be our biggest pain in the rear in hooking everything up. Other than that, it should go fairly smooth. We'll see. Put it on the wrong hole. Okay. Oh, shoot. Oh, there it is. To be honest, this hose here, I saw this and this, and I'm like, uh-oh, where did it go? Fortunately, it was on the ground right by the mower. Got a little concerned. Okay, it's on there. It's on there, but I need a ring on it. I'm sure that's sitting around here. I'll find it. But yep, that's that. Next is run the hydraulic lines, tighten these up. Put the shroud on, we're on our way. So the frustrating part about all of this is you have this hose here, which is a hydraulic line that runs off of the radiator here, and you've got to feed it up under here. So fortunately it just sits over the axle here. So there's not, it's not like you have to go through everything. The problem is right here is where it is, behind this thing. And it's kind of hard to get to without this tire off. Fortunately, this tire off makes it easier. So there we go, we got that all the way tightened in. That's actually the easiest that's ever been, was getting that on there. It's crazy to do this big wrench and a little wrench here to get it tightened, because this whole thing will move on me. Alright, boom, hydraulic line is done. Like, something about that was the easiest that's ever gone. It's because you're watching. Next, let's go ahead and get the tire on. I was debating about starting it up, but I want this thing to be level when I start it up, just to kind of reduce things that could go wrong. I'm just tired of things going wrong on this. So I realized in the editing, I don't know what happened to some of the footage, but let's kind of bridge two sections of the video. One, we got everything buttoned up, we got the water pump back in, we got the radiator back on, we got everything hooked up, turned it on, and the leak is gone in the water pump. However, the part where it goes through the engine and comes out to a water, to a thermostat, that's leaking now. So we got to yank that off, redo the seals on that, and put it all back in there. So let's jump to that next and get about it. But before that, if you've enjoyed this video or this channel, please go ahead and give a thumbs up on this video, because it really does help the video and helps the algorithm to know that, hey, you liked it. So with that in mind, let's jump to the next section. Hello and welcome back to like the 5,000th night of trying to fix this stupid mower. Last night we got this part off that the water pump flows water into and out of. We got the bolts off. That was a good time. I didn't show that because it took over an hour to get one bolt off because of how well it was stuck in there, and that would have been super boring. Needless to say, I got it. We're ready to clean this up, do some gasket, and get it back on that mower. And hopefully this is the last thing and it'll actually start running. What we're doing here is we're going to try to clean these up a little bit more. I got a little more gasket to scrape off, a little more dirt to scrape off, and just try to get it as clean as we can before we do gasket stuff. From there, we're going to we have some gasket material we'll put the stuff on top of, and then we're going to trace it out. The biggest thing is we got to trace out the outside, we got to trace out the screw holes, and then a little more of a complicated, not fun part is tracing out the inner circle that we need to cut out. We will do that once we have everything, once we have the base outside cut out, and then we're ready to kind of put everything together. So to do that, we just basically take the silicone that I hate dealing with, and we put it on each metal surface that the gasket is going to go on, and then we'll put the gasket on. Once we get that, we will shove the bolts all the way through, clean those up a little bit, and then we're ready to put it on the actual mower. And that's going to be a little bit of an interesting feat. We're going to make sure that's clean, and then we're going to put the gasket, the silicone gasket stuff on there, and get it shoved on. The unfortunate side is there's not a lot of room to maneuver in here, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to get everything in. So this is mounted. This hose under here has got to hook up to the bottom down there, so we're going to do that next. All right, so we have this on in here. So this will connect to here. Then we'll run a tube from up there down to here. But here we have the new gasket and the silicone, new gasket and silicone there. And I had to go ahead and tighten it down, probably too much, just because with how everything was, it just wasn't going well. And so went ahead and got it tightened down. And so we'll wait to let it dry before we put some water in it tomorrow, and hopefully this should solve the problem. I'll probably try to tighten it a little bit more. I finally figured out how to hold the screwdriver in there right. So yeah, we should hopefully be good with this. I did also want to point out, here is my workbench now, like where I'm putting all of the tools as I'm working on them. Just kind of start accumulating up there. So I did a bunch of stuff on the mower on checking and doing things, and found out that the microphone wasn't on. So I'm going to go over that and overlay some video on top of that. Basically, it's the next day. We're checking the area. It looks like everything is tight. I tightened down a little more, put the hoses on, and I think those are ready to go, and we're ready to pour in some water. Well, after pouring in some water, I think the areas that we were fixing, the water pump and the two areas above that I think where the thermostat flow and the water flowed through from the radiator, do not seem to be leaking. I think I have a slight leak because I didn't tighten down one of the hoses all the way, but that's the only thing I see water potentially coming out of on there. I am going to check it. However, the radiator itself looks to not be doing well at all. I think I see water coming out of the top of the radiator, but when I put it, if you look at this video here, like you could just see the water kind of falling down in a cascade out the outside of the radiator. So I think at this point the radiator is bad, and I am not exactly sure what to do about getting this radiator replaced. So this is my old radiator. Last night I put a bunch of water in it, and it does not seem to leak through here or through here. And I don't think there's a leak at the bottom of the reservoir. I think this radiator is actually good, or 95% good. With as much as that radiator is leaking in there, this is a whole lot better. So we're going to put this back on that and give it a shot, because it could have been the main issue with the whole thing to begin with, was the water pump, and we misdiagnosed the issue. So let's take this inside, let it cool down, and then we'll put it on the tractor. But first we got to pull the other one off. First things first is we got to get the radiator drained, and all I did was open up this cap. And this was actually, whenever I first got this, actually I had to open this up, take it off, and get it to where it actually fits, because it has a hole on the inside, and as you open it up, it kind of brings that, or close it actually, you close it, and it pushes that hole into the radiator, so it allows that bottom reservoir to drain. And then to close it, you spin it and it pulls that thing out so that it can actually drain out that hole pretty well. And then I think the whole thing is leaning this direction. So you might have heard me refer to this a few times as a tractor, and that's technically correct, because this part here is the tractor. That's what it's called. I mean, if you look it up, this is the tractor, and there is just a deck. It's an extension, it's an add-on that you do. You can take that off and put something else on it completely, but this is a tractor. So that's why I keep like intermixing mower and tractor, because it's technically a tractor. I'm gonna go ahead and take this hose off because I just don't want to deal with it at all. The downside on this, and the good thing I guess, there is a downside and a good thing. Downside is, went through a lot of work to get this thing to mount the shroud. Good thing is, put the old one back on, it should be easier to mount that shroud back on. We'll see how that goes. Now that I think about it, I have absolutely no clue how I was going to get that shroud back on. Crap. It's a good thing we're taking this off, because I'd get that shroud on with this on. And I guess I don't need it, per se. But that would have been annoying. Ooh. This just rotated, and I don't think I loosened it. Oh, maybe I did. Yeah, I did. Alright, so this is fine. We'll pull this off. We've got to unhook the hydraulic lines down at the bottom as well, which we have to do down here underneath the tire, so I got to take the tire off, and then the other one is right there again. So same procedure as we've done in the past, just got to do it again. Alright, let's put water in this. I don't even know how many times we're on in this thing, but let's put some water in and see if it leaks. Alright, so I got the mower backed out, and it does have a slight leak. It's down there at the bottom, and it's not as bad as it was with just the water pump and everything, and then after the old water pump that I think went dead. So we're going to try this. This is Radiator heavy duty stop leak. I don't know how good this stuff is supposed to work. This was recommended to me by my father-in-law, who has used it in a tractor before with good results. And we're going to look at doing it. So what you're supposed to do, pop the top, and since this is a 3-cylinder diesel, we're supposed to put in half of this and then fill it up with water to the recommended amount, and then start up the mower and run it for 15-30 minutes. So let's get going on doing that. Shake it up really, really, really good, because there's pellets inside here, and it's like, I don't know how much. Okay. Because you supposedly want like half the pellets and half the liquid. Well, okay, hold on, let me reread this. Okay, I don't... It says use half the liquid and pellets. I couldn't get half the liquid. So we're just going to use all the liquid and half the pellets. That might have been a little more than half. Well, I have no idea. It's already a potentially bad radiator. If it goes bad even more, whatever. Now let's fill it with water. Okay, I think we're good. This might not have leaked as much as I thought it did, but it still leaked. So we've got that. Well, that didn't exactly go as planned. That was pretty not awesome. Well, in the immortal words of Jeremy Clarkson, on that bombshell, good night. But don't forget to like, subscribe, and do all the things. And I'll see you next time where hopefully something goes right. We'll see. Talk to you later.